with competence comes confidence. Sport and physical activity brings all different people together. Maybe didn't enjoy sport at school, they didn't enjoy PE. You can still be the world's greatest and still make mistakes. Okay to make mistakes. It's like the idea of perfection is never real in sport. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Let's Talk uSports podcast. This is where PE teachers and sports coaches come together just to talk about the sector, talk about sport and physical activity, and hopefully create a community of like-minded people who are passionate about seeing young people develop. So if that's you found your people. This is where we come together every Thursday, 3 p.m. the podcast goes out. But before we get into today's topic, which is with competence comes confidence, I just wanted to sort of catch up on some of the sport over the weekend. So you might have been watching, you had quite a few different things. I think we've had the London Marathon was a big one, so that happened on Sunday. And for me, the London Marathon was just a reminder of how sport and physical activity brings all different people together. It doesn't care who you are, what you look like, your background, like your disability. It is a chance for everyone to come together and create a community of people who are just, wanting to do something good. And I think that's great. I think sport is such a positive vehicle for change within our society. And ultimately, a lot of the people who would have been running that that marathon would probably have been people who at school maybe enjoyed sport. But also within that, you will probably have a lot of runners that maybe didn't enjoy sport at school. They didn't enjoy PE, and yet they, at some point in their life, they've made a change to become passionate about physical activity and obviously running in that case. And to see people come together, I think when we bring that back to our sector, it's like if the more people that we can allow to have a positive experience in sport at a young age is going to create a healthier nation for everyone, a healthier society. And it's important that we as educators, but as schools as well, really highlight the importance of movement, of physical activity, of learning, and that is such a key part. Also, we had some sport. We had Man United played Coventry in the FA Cup in the men's football in the final, and Coventry were 3-0 down. Man United, I think it was after half-time, Man United let one goal in, then the second goal went in, and then you see the Coventry fans, that it suddenly goes 3-3, and they take the game to extra time. Now, when you see sport like that, and it's they've made a huge comeback, you see there were kids in the crowd, and they're going from 1 minute they're devastated because their team's losing 3-0 to elation, and then they get a goal disallowed because it was offside about 1 minute before the end of added time, and they got it disallowed, which meant the game went to penalties. So again, they've gone to elation, then goes to penalties, and they lost the penalties. And the sport allows families and communities to come together and really experience those highs and lows that actually you don't get that much in life. And sport again just brings that together, and again, kids in the crowd, people watching on TV will be watching that and falling in love with sport, although they might not like the result. I tell you what a game, and what a way to inspire a generation. It's a shame Coventry didn't win because they're the underdogs. They come in and they nearly won that, which I think would be a great result for Coventry, obviously, but also just kids across the world, really, to be able to see the underdogs beating the favourites. So that was good. I think we had the Masters as well, but I think that was the weekend before. But if you're into your golf, then you see the level of detail and the quality shown by the person who won, Scotty Scheffler, over 4 days, consistently being able to hit a little white ball almost exactly where he wanted it to go consistently every single day for 4 days over 72 holes. And again, kids who might be watching that will be able to see the excellence, and even at one of the most important golf events in the whole year, with the best player, he still made little mistakes here and there. And if, again, children see that and they see, look, you can still be the world's greatest and still make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. I was coaching yesterday, and I was doing a little invasion game, handball game. It was 4v4, and a couple of times one of the girls gave the ball away, and her initial reaction was to walk away and remove herself from the situation. She's made a mistake, and yes, she's made a mistake, but it's like the idea of perfection is never real in sport, and sport again gives us a chance to teach children this as a life challenge, as a life lesson, where you can still be successful, you can still win even if you make mistakes. So which sort of leads us into PE lessons and the way that the topic of with competence comes confidence, and if a child can learn in PE how to effectively and competently make a certain movement or a certain skill, then they're more likely to get better at that movement and they build their confidence. And then with confidence comes a more an increased chance of that child actually going on to be a healthy child. So I think to start us off in this topic, I wanted to talk about children between like 4 and 7 years old, because that is a real key stage. And within the sector, we talk about 3 different types of skill. So one is locomotor skill, and that is more your hopping, skipping, jumping, those sort of movements like running, walking, all those different movements that we have with our body. You then talk about stability skills, so that's more your more what would come into gymnastics and dance and balance and flight and being able to control our body. And then you've got manipulation skills, which is more maybe dribbling a basketball or hitting a tennis ball with a tennis racket or a badminton shuttlecock, for example. And when we look at them, all 3 of those as teachers, especially from 4 to 7 years old, we need to be thinking about, right, how are we getting our children to be competent in locomotor skills, stability skills, and manipulation skills. And when you look at the research in the UK and compare it to countries like China, children are considerably more competent by the age of 11 in China than they are in the UK. And it's not to say that China do PE better, but what China do better is repetition, and their children will constantly repeat skipping or hopping or jumping. So most of the time, by repeating, the children's body is learning how to effectively do that. So if they are competent, for example, in being able to jump and land 2-footed, if they're competent in that in year 7, by 7 years old, if you then put them into a netball match and they're not allowed to travel and they have to jump, catch the ball and land on 2 feet, they're doing that when they're 9 years old, they're going to find that particular skill easier, which allows them then to have a bit more confidence within the sport. And once they're confident in the sport, they're going to be better at the sport, and both in the sport they'll be better, but also mentally they'll be more confident, and that helps in terms of a child then going into year 8 or year 9, which is where we see a lot of girls in particular drop out of PE and avoid PE. And sometimes that's a mental side, but also a physical side. They're not competent in throwing and catching a ball, and so they aren't confident going into a netball lesson by year 8 or year 9. And rather than deal with not being able to do it or the social embarrassment of not being able to do it, they avoid going into the session. That's not only girls, obviously that happens with boys, but the research from Ofsted is to say that it does happen more with girls than it does with boys. And they suggested within the research is that happened because boys naturally, when they're playing at break time, at lunchtime, at holiday camps, at at home, that boys naturally play in a more physical way, and in doing so, when they're playing tag, for example, they are learning more locomotor skills. Or if they're out playing football all the time, then they're learning their manipulation skills. Whereas girls naturally don't tend to be as active in their own free time. So particularly us as educators, when we were looking at 4 to 7 year olds, knowing that often the girls might be starting at a lower level purely just from their life outside of school as well. So just because that everyone's in year one doesn't mean they're all at the same level. Obviously, we know that. So how do we allow our children to be more competent? And I think I have to just be, there's so many different ways. Obviously, the lesson has to be better a lot of the time. And how do we make lessons better? Well, often, and I'm not saying everywhere or in any of our particular schools, but you will see a lesson which is just so static. It's very teacher-led. It's lots of stop, stand still. It's a lot of behaviour management, of trying to make sure the children are quiet perfectly all the time. And actually, sometimes an hour lesson can quite easily be cut down into, I'd say, 30 or 40 minutes. And then if the children are not actually that active within that session, they're not actually getting a lot of time to repeat the practices and learn skills, then we could be looking at a 1 hour slot on the timetable, but only really seeing children throwing and catching within a lesson for 5 to 10 minutes, which just isn't enough time for them to really learn, especially when you look at all the different skills, the locomotor, stability, and the other one, which I can't remember. Then you need lots of time practicing those skills, and once you learn the skills, then trying to make it, just constantly trying to progress them and make them more difficult. And whether that is by moving into a more competitive environment or adding additional movements in there, it's still going to challenge the kids. But if they just haven't got enough time to do it, then that it's not going to help, basically. So if a school can allow the children, a lot of schools are doing it now, but if they can allow the children to come in their PE kit, well, straight away then, when it's 1 o'clock and it's time for PE, we can get into the actual space where we're delivering the lesson quicker and more effectively. When we then get into it, what is the pedagogy within your school? What is your belief? Right, what is the warm-up? Is it a lap around the field, which when you're trying to teach a child to dribble a basketball, doesn't actually help them develop that particular skill. So does the belief become that in your school, every PE lesson, as soon as you go into something, the warm-up is related not only to the sport, but to the actual skill that you are learning today? So I think that is a way that schools can get a lot more time in to actually develop the competence of the child. Within that as well, I think equipment is really important. There's so many PE cupboards I'll go into, and I keep saying basketball, but if it's basketball, if you have 30 basketballs ready, pumped up to give to the children straight away at the start of the lesson, all of them can be practicing their dribbling. Whereas if you've only got 10, well then 10 of them are doing it and 20 are either waiting or doing something different, which isn't helping them to develop their dribbling. So if you can and the budget's there, the equipment is really important. And often with the budget, you'll go into a PE cupboard and you'll see genuinely thousands of pounds worth of sports equipment that is left in all the plastic packaging. It's all perfect. It's all left in a cardboard box. It's not even been opened. Somebody's ordered it or we've been donated it and it just hasn't even opened up. And I think looking at your own school facilities and think, is the equipment good enough? Not only for you as a teacher, but for the other teachers within the school. Is it clear where things should be put back? Is there enough equipment? Does an order need to go in? Because the more time we can actually get the kids doing something and being and actually practicing the skill, the more competent they will become. And between 4 and 7 years old, they're going to make the most progress throughout those years than they will do in any other age in their life. Okay, so if we can get it right for EYFS and year 1 and year 2, then we're really going to see hopefully a better competence by the end of year 2 across all of our children, which then when you lead that into sports and they go and actually do sports from maybe year 3 or 4 onwards, they are more confident within those sports. So yeah, I think overall it's just an idea of, look, children in our country are not competent. A lot of them are not learning in PE lessons, but they don't learn as much outside of school as maybe we used to or as other countries. And a lot of the time, PE is, well, not a lot of the time, but for some children, PE is the only actual time throughout the whole week where they are learning how to they're learning a new skill. And we as teachers need to value that and make the most out of that time. And there's I see it too much where time is wasted in a PE lesson where children could be learning and be getting better at certain skills. So definitely think that's going to be a topic that we see more and more. Definitely seeing it just on LinkedIn. I see a lot more comments and posts about competence and confidence and building up with confidence. Because a lot of it, even yes, we're physically, if a child can do it, that's one thing. But another thing is mentally whether they can do it, because there's a lot of mental health issues as well within the younger people of today. And so the more competent they are, I think mentally that's going to really support them as well. And we know if they're enjoying sport and they're active, they're then more likely to lead healthier lives. They're more likely to get to sleep on time. They're going to be better rested. They're going to be releasing endorphins, so they're feeling better within themselves. There's so many benefits to exercise, but it all comes down to whether children are actually enjoying and wanting to be active. And if they are, it can have so many positive benefits. So yeah, I would just encourage you in your school and in your own lessons to think about, right, am I really helping these children become competent within this skill? And there might be changes. So one change you might see actually is that, and different schools do it in different ways, but some schools will do 3 weeks of hockey, 3 weeks of tag rugby, 3 weeks of, and what happens is actually the child never becomes competent in any of the skills within those lessons because there's not enough time. You might actually go, we're actually going to go hockey for 12 weeks, but we are expecting all of our year twos to be able to dribble a ball effectively, for example. And with that, with more time committed to certain skills, that yes, they might not learn every single skill, or might not learn or experience all the different sports, but they might actually learn the skills and be able to cross that into, if they build up their hand-eye coordination within hockey, does that then go on to help them in cricket or tennis or badminton? And actually, I don't know the research on that, if I'm totally honest, but I would say by focusing more on one thing, it would actually help the child more than more of a scatter approach. So bit of a short podcast today. I'll be honest, this is Thursday morning. It has to go out Thursday afternoon, and I've probably just gone through one of the hardest 24 hours of running a sports coaching business. So yeah, if you're interested to find out a little bit more about uSports and what we do, we're a sports coaching business based in Reading, in the Thames Valley. And we're working with over 100 schools and nurseries. We've got a partner in Bristol as well, and Welwyn Garden City. And what we're looking to do is become one of the largest sports coaching companies in the UK. But with that comes its challenges. And actually, I do a weekly, so every week on a Sunday at 6 a.m, you get to see all the behind the scenes of what it's like actually running a 7-figure sports coaching business. And trust me, it's easy at times, but it's really difficult at other times. So you might be interested in that. If you are, or if you've enjoyed today's podcast, please do like and share it, and we'll see you in the next one.